Action Comics number 5 brings us back on track with Superman. It's nowhere near as crazy as Superman Gridiron Hero. Action Comics number 5 story is The Big Scoop, which really doesn't give away what exactly the story is about. There is a dam collapse in Vallejo, which is somewhere. They have to take a train. George Taylor, the editor-in-chief, not Perry White yet, he's not Perry White until they say he's Perry White, wants Clark to cover a dam collapse in Vallejo. Lois wants the story, but George Taylor tells her nope. On her way out to cover the story anyways, because you don't tell Lois Lane no, she runs into Clark. Instead of telling him about the story he's supposed to cover, she makes up a story about the maternity ward, so Clark runs right over to deal with that story, while Lois takes the train over to the Vallejo. Clark gets to the hospital, finds that there is no story, gets back to George Taylor, who is absolutely furious he fell for this, and fires Clark. So Lois Lane gets Clark fired. And this is what I'm talking about, how there's both good and bad with this version of Lois Lane. She's fairly cold, but she's also fairly tenacious. Like, she doesn't care who she's going to crush. If they're in her way for a good story, she will crush them. That's kind of amazing for a female character in a superhero comic in the 1930s. Like, I like that part. I do not like the part where she's constantly calling Clark like a worm and pathetic. Like her unstoppable tunnel vision about whatever story she wants or is given, nothing will stand in her way until she gets it. That is a great characterization, and it's actually more characterization than I would argue Clark or Superman have been given yet. Clark doesn't have much of a personality other than he never wants to fight anybody Lois wants him to fight. Clark, instead of getting in a depression or whining about it, he's of course Superman. You know, bright blue suit, red cape, Superman. He outruns the train and gets to Vallejo before everyone, and he gets to Vallejo before Lois. Lois arrives in Vallejo where everyone is evacuating. I'm kind of unclear of how she plans to report on the story. Usually you don't give like first-hand accounts of a story unless you're maybe a TV news reporter on the scene, but even then you're going to get quotes from people who are experiencing everything. Everyone is evacuating. There doesn't seem to be any sort of like relief effort or any effort to try to stop the dam from bursting. So when a taxi driver just up and gives her his taxi for her to drive because he's getting out of there, I don't know what she plans to go report on. Like, it's clearly too dangerous to be here, and even if she gets to the dam, she's not going to be able to use any of this because she's witnessing this live. That's not kind of how journalism works. You interview people, you need sources, you can't just have your star reporter report on what they saw. There is a huge ethical dilemma there. Superman is able to hold the dam until everyone evacuates, then he just kind of lets the dam collapse. I guess that's heroic. He's not as powerful as he will be, so I guess he can just let the dam break if no one's going to die. Unfortunately, Lois is still there and her car gets flooded. He goes down and pulls her out. This is the one conflict, emergency, anything he really does in this issue. It's a very uneventful. He takes her back up, she's revived, she's so happy to see Superman because she's totally into Superman. I mean, who wouldn't be? Bright blue suit, red cape. Looks great. Before she can get back, Clark has already called in the story, so Clark does get the upper hand and gets his job back. And if we're going to play a game of her thinking Clark is pathetic, it is, and her being fairly cold and kind of conniving out to crush anybody in her way, I think it's actually kind of fun to allow Clark to get the upper hand every now and then. It needs to be a more fair game. She needs to get the upper hand every now and then he needs to get the upper hand. Because he's Superman, he's going to get the upper hand almost every time. Unless he just kind of lets her have the story, which does happen. Yeah, so that was Action Comics number 5, The Big Scoop. It's, like I said, not very eventful, and honestly, I had to double check this story because I had totally forgotten what Action Comics number 5 was. I thought the plot of Action number 6 was the plot to Action Comics number 5. That's how little it's staying in my memory. And I remember most of these stories. It's also fascinating to possibly talk about, I can't find any evidence of this, but Superman saving Lois from a dam collapse where she gets trapped in her car is the climax to the Richard Donner, Christopher Reeve Superman film. I mean, it could be a coincidence, but I would assume they had to have read a bunch of these comics while writing that screenplay, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was the inspiration for that scene. So that's kind of a cool thing about this issue, is it might be the inspiration for one of the best superhero movies of all time. Maybe I'll talk about that movie and why Christopher Reeves was just kind of the perfect Superman. But that's it for today. It's kind of a short one. Like I said, Action Comics number 5 was fairly uneventful, even though he is fighting a dam collapse, essentially. I will be back tomorrow to talk about Action Comics number 6, which if it's the story I think it is, it's going to be a little more fun to talk about. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I will be doing this every day, Monday through Friday, tackling either an Action Comics or a Superman story. I will see about the other Superman comics once they start appearing. Probably not World's Finest right away. If you want to get ahead, I am currently around day 40 in my blog recaps and reviews. They are very different from these, mostly because I wrote those right after reading the comic like a month ago. This is me mostly using my memory and like a little skimming of the review to remind me of what the story is. I feel like I'm giving more of a reaction than my blog. That is supermancomicaday.com. My Twitter is lastnoblesteed at twitter.com. And there is a Facebook page, same name, Superman Comic a Day. I will be back here to talk about the Man of Steel tomorrow.